Games Workshop produces an eye-watering number of HQs and characters, and it's hard to complain about this mountain of super detailed, beautiful, high-quality characters, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I think Games Workshop perfected the character well over a decade ago with this box. Chaos Lord in Terminator armor. Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Eons of Battle. I have had an interesting relationship with Games Workshop's HQs. I think for the first 2 years of my hobbying, I did not purchase any characters. When I was a high schooler with incredibly limited hobby dollars, I wanted to spend those dollars on troops and the occasional vehicle. I didn't want to drop a big pile of money on a single figure, and it definitely didn't help that I played Necrons, and all of my HQs were Finecast. In fact, I remember vividly taking part in a Thanksgiving apocalypse game at my friendly local game store where I did not bring a single HQ. I still remember the look of annoyance, shock, and confusion on my teammates' face when I told them that not only did I not bring any HQs, but that I did not own any. I didn't think that I was good enough to paint them, and I thought they were too expensive. But luckily, eventually, I got over it. It did help that I had 2 full 40k armies with no leaders. Eventually, I finally broke down and I made some. I kit bashed my Space Marine heroes. Let me introduce you to my Lieutenant, Warmund, armed with the chapter relic, the Primarch's Wrath, a unique Stormbolter, and my Captain, Clairvox, armed with the relic, the Teeth of Terra, a special chainsword. After collecting so many Space Marines, I had more than enough bits to build these. I might have to recreate these guys in Primaris form. Let me know if that sounds cool. So I like character models now. Cool, but what does any of this have to do with Games Workshop? Well, back in the before days, when Games Workshop was furiously trying to get all the kits out for all the armies, we would get boxes like this. Essentially just a pair of legs with a smorgasbord of options. And you were lucky to get this. Your army might only get 1 character model for years, so it had to be flexible. And this box was the cream of the crop. Chaos Lord and Terminator armor from 2007. This is a 2-sprue kit that has everything you would want in a character box. It allows you to build a commander that's basically any loadout you can think of. You can go shooty, you can go stabby, you can go magic, you can do it all. With a modern 40k kit, they have been perfected and you must follow the instructions, but this guy, I barely looked at him. I got to work cutting off every single bit. This was fun. I had no idea what it was gonna end up using. And you might think that tactical rocks are a modern thing, but look at this monstrosity. This kit is very modular, but also is showing its age. The mold lines are atrocious. It was an adventure gluing this guy together, as there was no right way to do it. I just perused through the available bits and selected those that I liked. And wanting my model to age well, I put some green stuff in his joints to help fill him out a little bit. I'm sure that Primaris Chaos Space Marines are right around the corner. This kit came with not just helmet and head options, but many different heads and helmets. I decided to go with this Elephant Rhino Abomination Terminator helmets. Now that I had my man built, it was time to decide between the 2 of 9 weapons I should outfit him with. So not wanting to make a bad pick, I took some trusty poster putty, or PP for short, and tried them all out. You never really know how something will look until you see it on the model. I'm sure that every single weapon has its own stats, pros and cons, and I could learn them all and decide based on that, but rule of cool will prevail. And I've been around long enough to know that what is good right now may not be the best pick in the next edition, or hell, the next week. This model is awesome. The legs are preset, but everything else was up to me. I decided to ditch the cape and go with the Combi Bolter with the Power Bayonet, and wanting even more power weapons, I went with the Power Axe. This may not be the objectively coolest model out there. I think Mephiston Lord of Death is the best Space Marine model, but it is pretty cool to know that no one else's Terminator Lord looks exactly like this. So what Legion of Space Marines should I paint him as? World Eater's Red seems like an obvious choice, but I really do love the Night Lord's book. Dark blue with lightning bolts is pretty awesome, but I'm in a little bit of a Slaneshi kind of mood. I think I'm feeling bright pink. I have my model, I have my scheme, it's time to get to work. For most of my wargaming career, I've been painting black power armor, so pink should be a nice change of pace. And the first step in painting pink, a black primer. I'm spraying this through my airbrush, but a rattle can would work too. Next up was a 50-50 mixture of purple and magenta. This will create my shadows. Sometimes these Vallejo paints that I don't use often get really separated and I have to shake the bejesus out of them. I don't use the airbrush nearly as often as I should. It's a great tool and it can save me tons of time. I began spraying and instantly the model started to have an eerie, chaotic feeling to it. Next, some pure magenta, and this really gave it a hot pink look. I sprayed this so about 50% of the purple was showing underneath. Then a 50-50 mixture of magenta and pink. This will be my brightest highlights for the top parts of the armor. Well, it's kind of weird to see bright pink on one of my little army men, but I think it totally works. I don't do nearly enough with my airbrushes, and applying a purple-pink gradient was a perfect application. But it's looking a little bit flat, so I think it's time to apply a little bit of shading with some washes. For washes, I decided to go with some Army Painter Purple. I really like Army Painter washes for armor. Their slightly glossy finish really helps them to get into the corners and not leave coffee stains like matte washes can do. I used just a little bit of gloss medium to thin it, and then I began selectively washing the mini. I applied a heavy line of wash to all the edges of the armor and did about 2 thin coats everywhere. This way I was in complete control. This is not a dunking. Now that my mini is shaded, I wanted to do an edge highlighting. I mixed together a little white and pink and began highlighting the raised edges. I don't pick out every single edge like the Games Workshop box art, just the ones I can see and reach, as these would be the ones that would catch the light. It also helped to bring out the mountain of detail on this chaotic armor. And you know what else is full of chaotic details? That's right, our Patreon. If you like the videos we make and you want more, the best way to support us is by becoming a member of our Patreon. Over there, you'll gain access to some behind the scenes, voting on what models I paint live here on YouTube, a live hobby hangout every week, some terrain STLs, and more. With that said, this pink is finished and it's time for the next step. The pink is now done, and I'm gonna try to work on all of his little accessories, and I'm gonna try to tint them all blue, because I think blue will look really nice against the pink base coat. I put down some gray paint and just a dash of blue. Then I used my nice brush to paint all the gray that is really close to his pink armor, but I didn't use this brush for everything. I switched to my Army Painter dry brush. This can really lay down the paint and will save me some time as I can quickly get into all the nooks and crannies of his weird shaped weapons. It's always a good idea to use the biggest brush you can. Then it was time to wash. I broke out my Games Workshop Null and Oil and Drukhari Nightshade. Black and blue, as I wanted a matte finish. I put this on all the gray. Then I wanted to try something. I could have highlighted everything carefully with a brush, but I tried out stippling with a piece of foam. I think it worked great. It gave everything a nice texture and only deposited paint in the raised areas, and it was nice and quick to pull off too. To finish off the weapons, I did a dry brushing of white, just to pull together all of the sponging and to give the shapes a little bit of definition by highlighting the edges. I think it's looking really nice. Now for some of the odder decorations, like skulls and horns. I base coated all of these with brown. You know, one thing that has always kept me away from Chaos is how ramshackle everything feels. You've got at least 4, really 5 different colors. You've got the red, green, pink, and blue, and then you've also got black for Chaos undecided or ununified, but it all looks so weird when it's all sitting next to each other, and that non-uniformity has kind of been what has kept me away from Chaos. But the more I think about it, the more I think that maybe that is actually a good thing. Maybe it should be weird and, dare I say, chaotic, and just crazy with Space Marines, regular Space Marine tanks sitting next to dinosaur robots, sitting next to Slaaneshi chariots, sitting next to green snail tanks for the Nurgle. Maybe Chaos armies should be a giant pile of crazy colors and crazier shapes. Maybe that is what makes Chaos unique, as opposed to just a different color of Space Marines. I highlighted with a mixture of brown and hemp, and I wanted these to be darker colors so they don't pull focus from the pink or gray. I did a further highlighting using more and more hemp than brown to give them some definition to the model's details. And finally, a highlighting of pure hemp. So the skulls and the tusks are just a dark umber brown and then Army Painter hemp rope, and it looks really nice. It looks great next to the blue, gray, and the pink, and have to save that recipe for later. If only it were in a YouTube video that I could refer back to. Finally, it was time to tackle the power weapons. I applied my most medium color, blue. Then I took some black and white and mapped out where I wanted my colors to end up. And then I began glazing on my slightly light blue, then some slightly lighter blue, and then some even lighter blue. Next was the dark blues. Just like before, I did this in 3 shades. A slightly dark blue, a medium dark blue, and then a dark blue. This was not easy. I would suggest mixing up every color separately so that they're all available to you on your palette for easy corrections. I had to make a lot of corrections. But even though it was really hard and not much fun to do, look how it comes to life with an edge highlighting. Now that is a power weapon. And now before I forget, he needs a decal. I softened it up on my palette and then transferred it onto the Mini. I love a decal, and I have a video where I go in depth on strategies for putting them on. He's getting close now. I broke out the airbrush again and gave him some spooky glowing eyes. My Chaos Space Marine, what big eyes you have. Then to really sell the glow, I put white on the lenses. It's important for the thing giving off the light to be lighter than the light cast. He's getting real close. Probably the best power weapons I've ever painted. I wish there was an easy way to power weapon, but you just gotta do it over and over and over and over. Now it's time to work on his base. I put a few drops of red into my airbrush and sprayed it on. I want this base to pop. And speaking of popping, I put a few drops of orange into my airbrush. This should look amazing next to the pink. You don't see orange much, and there, in just 2 quick squirts, the base is done. Now, I let a little overspraying get onto the feet, but I want it to be more exaggerated, so I got out some orange pigments and mixed them with alcohol. I put this soupy mixture all over his legs. This will look really dusty, and I wanted them a bit less dusty on the flat panels, so I wiped some of it away with a damp paintbrush, leaving the heaviest clumps of pigment in the corners and recesses. Now my Chaos Lord is properly situated on his base. The only thing left to do was paint the rim of the base black, or whatever color you want. Chaos Space Marines started their lives as devoted servants of the Emperor, beholden to honor and duty. Now they've grown corrupt and have abandoned their rigid structure of the Codex Astartes and instead devoted themselves to the god Slanesh. They are now dedicated to the pursuits of earthly gratification, and sending as many mortal souls to their dark god. This model is really cool. With just a little bit of work, I have made him mine. With his roof spikes and double power weapons, I really appreciated having all the options. I know for a lot of people, their hero is a reflection of themselves. They are the commander in charge, leading their troops on the battle. And Build-A-Bear style boxes like this are great because it kind of forces players to make those role-playing decisions, and I think that that is awesome. And look at all these other Chaos Lords that other people have made. Every one of them is unique. I think models like this are important. Now at this point, other Imperium and Xenos players are probably a little bit confused because this is a little bit of a Space Marine only thing. Most factions have never had it this good, but in classic Space Marine fashion, we get 10 times as much as everyone else and complain about it 10 times more than anyone else. It's nice to have lots of options, because even as customizable as this guy is, you can't turn him into anything. Having lots of available models is nice, but no matter how many options there are, your Captain and Phobos armor jumping over a log will look about the same as someone else's Captain and Phobos armor jumping over a log. I would love to see these option-heavy HQ boxes make a comeback. I appreciate how amazing modern HQs look, but there is no replacing a hobbyist's imagination. So what do you guys think? I know it is asking a lot for models like this to make a comeback, but what are your guys' unique characters, and do you give them names? You know I do. But now it's time for the real star of the show, this week's EOB Complete submissions. We put out a challenge to our community to send us before and after photos of their recently finished models to be immortalized in our videos. If you want to join in the fun, you can submit a before and after photo of your painted mini to our Discord server, which you can find in the description below, or you can post it to Instagram with the hashtag EOBComplete. Without further ado, let's look at and get inspired by what the folks have finished this week. Some Orc Commandos by Protech, a Plague Marine with Flail of Corruption by Disco, a Skeleboy Drummer by ChewToy9696, a Space Marine Reaver by Brood Lappin, an Orc Killican by Mechabus, a Stormcast Eternal by Visk, a Primaris Inceptor by Sea Maniac, a Grot by The Fluffy One, some Lord of the Rings Spearmen by Animnate, an Assault Intercessor by Lookaz, a Primaris Chaplain by Teabagger, some Tempestus Scions by The Living Paint, a Contemptor Achilles Dreadnought by Brother Captain Brutus, a Bretonian Knight by Arm Smash, a Necron Royal Warden by Chegs.jpg, a Lord of the Rings Golem by GoBoy3133, some Spider Riders by Astrama, a Primarch Mortarion by Just Cruisin', a squad of Plague Marines by Mike's 40k Journey, a Death Guard with Blight Launcher by Tin Man, a custom Weirboy and Warboss by Big Mech Rickdo, a Death Guard with Flail of Corruption by Judas, a Typhus Lord of Contagion by The Mullet Man, an Orc Knob Boss by Black Lung Raider, and a D&D Paladin by Neil. Congratulations to everyone for a job well done. It's no small feat to get paint on minis, and you all should feel really proud. Nothing gets the hobby juices flowing like finishing a project, and we all thank you for sharing your work, motivating us and the hobby community to paint our plastic. Thanks for sharing.